Hello, and welcome back to another exciting virtual nature lesson. I'm Cassie Olson, Program Coordinator at Pelican Lake, Sandy Shores, and Lake Cochran Recreation Areas, as well as Hartford Beach State Park. Today's program is going to rock. There's an old saying that goes, if it can't be grown, it must be mined. We're going to dig into that saying a little bit and see exactly what they mean by that. Today we're going to talk about geology. Geology is the study of Earth and what it's made up of. Someone who studies this also studies the events that have changed the Earth and shaped it over the last few billion years is called a geologist. Geologists study rocks, minerals, fossils, landforms, and other different layers of Earth's surface. Well, when you see something like this, what goes through your head? Many of you are thinking, well, Cassie, that's just a rock. And today I am here to tell you that this is not just a rock. There is much more to it being than just a rock. I could teach you about geology and rocks all day, but I'm going to do my best to ease into it. First, I need you to put on your geologist hat because we are going to take over that role today and explore what this pencil has to do with geology. Let's start with what I believe is the most important part of a pencil, the lead. Okay, so the lead is not actually lead. It's a mixture of clay and graphite. Each of these are pulled from the ground and they're mixed up into a paste and then squeezed into this tiny tube. Whoops. Next up, let's check out the eraser. Most erasers are made up of synthetic rubber, which comes from petroleum byproducts. That petroleum comes from drilling oil from the ground, which has almost everything to do with geology. The rubber is combined with pumice and other mineral pigments that also come from the ground. Let's scoot down just a little bit to this little metal piece right here. This piece holds the eraser on and it's called the ferrule. A ferrule is made of aluminum, which comes out of the ground. Alrighty. What about the wood? That's not a rock or a mineral that comes out of the ground, right? Right, except for the part where the tree gets chopped down, cut up, shipped out, broke down even more, stuffed with lead, and then glued together. All of that requires a bunch of tools and machines that are made of metal, which comes out of the ground. The transportation that is provided to bring this place from A to B consumes fuel, which, guess what, comes out of the ground. Oh yes, and what about the paint that's around this very patriotic pencil? That is made up of mineral-based tiny pieces that come from the ground. Every single part of this pencil is made up of something that came from the earth. So now, does that saying, if it can't be grown, it must be mined, make a little bit more sense? Look around you. Everything around us is made, it either came from the earth or it is made from something that did. The average American uses 37,920 pounds of mined resources in a year, such as sand, stone, limestone, iron, aluminum, and everything else that we use to make up homes, roads, cars, tires, cell phones, TVs, video games, shoes, glasses, and everything else that makes up our daily lives. And that's not even including energy resources like coal or oil. So remember a few minutes ago when I showed you this rock? I hope you know now that geology just isn't about rocks. It works with every study of science, like chemistry, computer science, biology, history, and so much more. We're going to dig into rocks a little bit more today, and there's food involved, so make sure to stick around. Over our Earth's lifetime, there have been many theories and documentations about the Earth and its landscapes. Aristotle hypothesized that Earth's changes are so slow that these changes can't even be observed in a single lifetime. Some few thousand years later, there was a discovery about different bones and minerals being trapped under layers of Earth over the years, which is where fossils and aging different landscapes by looking at rocks and minerals came into play. If you have ever been to the Badlands, you may have seen different layers in the landscape. The study of these layers is called stratigraphy. Take a look at this photo and you can see those different layers. Most of the brown and tan layers are sandstone, mudstone, and siltstone. Ancient rivers carried gravel, sand, and silt to this area, and over time, those layers hardened into sedimentary rock layers that we can see today. The gray areas are an ash layer that came from an ancient volcanic eruption. The volcanoes were in present-day Nevada. The ash traveled in the air and settled here. The red strips in the Badlands are ancient fossilized soils. Scientists that study these ancient soils have found that fossil root traces, ancient bones, and ancient snail shells. The ancient sea drained away when the Black Hills formed in western South Dakota. This layer then turned yellow because it was exposed to air. Tropical plants grew here. Today this layer is called the Yellow Mounds. The pure shale is the oldest layer in the Badlands. These are the black layers that were deposited by an ancient sea. Fossils of ancient sea creatures are found here. Badlands National Park also preserves the world's greatest fossil beds of animals from the age of the mammals. It is so amazing how much history comes just from looking at rocks and landscapes. Another theory about geology has to do with erosion. Erosion is when the earth is broken down by wind, water, and other natural causes such as iron rusting or limestone dissolving. Every day, there are processes that are eroding down Earth's landscapes, but also building some up, like mountains. There are many geological processes that are happening now that probably took place many years ago. Okay, I know this is all so exciting, but I know you really want to know what rocks and food have to do with each other. So let's get started by me telling you about the different types of rocks. We could go way into depth about these different types of rocks, but not today. There are three major types of rocks based on their formation. There are igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks, and metamorphic rocks. Let's start with igneous. The word igneous comes from the Latin word ignis, which actually means fire. Igneous rocks are formed when molten lava, called magma, comes out of a volcano. When that magma cools down and hardens, it makes an igneous rock. Granite is a really common rock around here, and granite is an igneous rock. The upper segment of Earth's crust is made up of about 95% igneous rocks. This type of rock is made with tons of heat. Remember that. The next one is sedimentary rocks. Sedimentary rocks are formed by sediment that is deposited over time, usually in layers at the bottom of lakes and oceans. The sediment can include minerals, small pieces of plants, and other organic matter. It is then compressed over a long period of time before it consolidates into a big, long, solid layer of rock. Sandstone and coal are examples of sedimentary rocks. This type of rock is formed with a ton of pressure. Metamorphic rocks is when an igneous rock and a sedimentary rock are exposed to great pressure and heat. They then change and combine into one metamorphic rock. This could take up to 1,000 years. It doesn't melt the rock, it just transforms it into a dense, compact rock. Slate and marble are examples. This type of rock is formed with both a ton of heat and a ton of pressure. I think the best way to get a really good understanding of the three major types of rock is, of course, with food. So let's head to the kitchen and see what we can find in the snack cupboard to help us out with this. All right, welcome to the kitchen. Probably everybody who watches these videos' favorite room of this house because you know it's always crazy in this room. So let's get started. We're going to begin with igneous rocks. Do you remember how igneous rocks are made? With tons of heat. So we're going to take these chocolate chips and make them into molten lava. When they melt, we'll come back and we'll turn it into an igneous rock. So hang tight. This melted pile of mush is actually our molten lava. So it's cooling right now. It was boiling when I took it off of the stove. It's cooling and it's going to harden into our igneous rock. So we'll let this hang out until it hardens and then we'll move on. All right, next up, sedimentary rocks. Went to the snack cupboard, found things that would taste good together like Honey Nut Cheerios, peanut butter, and it's the first scoop out of the peanut butter. It always tastes the best. And sprinkles. These are going to be our sediments that are going to make up our sedimentary rocks. So let's pour it out. Well, that wasn't very graceful. Pouring it out. Scooping our peanut butter. This is not so easy. There we go. And sprinkles. Whoop, that made a mess. Now, what makes up a sedimentary rock? Do you remember? Pressure. Squeeze it together. Mix it up. And voila. We gotta get a little more peanut butter up here. That is our sedimentary rock. Alrighty. We better check on our igneous rock. Alrighty, our igneous rock is cooled into one big hard rock of molten lava. Now, do you remember what a metamorphic rock is? A metamorphic rock is an igneous rock and a sedimentary rock that are pushed together to combine one rock. So, they use heat and pressure. So I'm gonna mix it up for our pressure. And then I'm gonna throw it on the stove again for just a minute. And it's gonna be delicious. Okay, it's not entirely melted, but it's warm and it's packed together into a whole new rock. You can still see our chunks of sedimentary rock and our igneous rock, but that made our whole new rock. Today we just scratched the surface on geology, but there is still so much more to learn about rocks and minerals around us. We know that everything we do and touch and see comes from the earth or is made from something that does. So for today's challenge, I want you to find 15 different things around your house that came from the ground in some way. We already dissected a pencil and discovered that the whole thing is made from something that comes from the ground. Let's see what else you can discover. Thanks for joining me today, and I will see you on Fun Friday. If you have any crazy questions that you want me to answer on Friday, make sure you get them sent in as soon as possible. I will see you Friday.